Greetings. Welcome to Becoming Chiron, the key to unlocking healing and personal alchemy with me, your hostess, Ursula Duffy. So this is the final episode of season 2. This season, we have been going through Chiron through the houses. And next season, we will be going through Chiron through the signs. So I have a lot to cover in today's episode. We have a full moon incoming that has a lot of pretty complex energy in it. And the energy that has been building up to it has also been pretty serious and complex as well. So I really want to focus our astro weather forecast on the full moon that's coming on actually tomorrow at 11:43 p.m. We'll get into that pretty deeply. But as I did last time, we're kind of, as I said, in this integration, reflection phase collectively and individually, now that we're fully cleared post-retrograde shadow with the recent Mercury retrograde. Eclipse season is wrapped up. It has been since the new moon that I talked about in Taurus in the last episode. So this integration piece, I think, is really important to focus on. So I want to go back a little bit and just discuss kind of the energies that we were under in May. May was a pretty intense month, and we're really just coming out of it at this point. The fog is clearing, the smoke is clearing, and there's a lot of clarity that's coming for me personally around what all of that was really about. So I want to do some personal sharing and talk about that, and hope that helps to kind of translate the energy, and hope that it helps you in your own journey with everything that's been going on cosmically, not only in the last month and a half, but really for the entire year so far up to this point. So let's get into that, and let's kind of just start with the energy of the full moon. And I want to do 2 readings first from Louise Hay's I Can Do It calendar. I have this calendar. I've had it every year now for several years, and there's an affirmation every day of encouragement. And there's, at the beginning of every month, a message about kind of what the energy of the month is about. And I love this calendar. Louise, as we say at Sea Goddess, is one of our fairy godmothers, and she was just such a brilliant, beautiful soul, and had so much knowledge, and was just such a wonderful teacher. And we recommend Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life frequently. And that helped me in my own healing journey. That was one of the first books I was exposed to when my spiritual reawakening started. So I'm going to read the calendar message for the month of May, and then the one from yesterday for the month of June, now that we're kind of in this new month, newer energy, and now we have this starting off this new month with this full moon. So I'm going to read that. And just to note, it's around 11 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast in Atlantic City. And I'm just thrilled that we're wrapping up season 2. Like, this is just incredible. And I'm just so excited to wrap up this content and talk about the 12th house today, which is a very interesting place in the sky and in the chart, and shift topics and shift focus for next season, which I'll probably start around the Gemini new moon later this month. So the calendar message for the month of May is all green, and I think they're lavender flowers on it. Each calendar page has the affirmation, but also an image. So the ones in winter had like a, wintry, snowy vibe. And now the spring ones have flowers. It's just, and animals, there's animals on a lot of them too. So it's just a really cool, if you don't have it, I always get them when Hay House has one of their sales. And I get them probably usually in the fall is when they start putting them on sale. So just stay tuned for that if you're interested. It's just an awesome little thing to keep on your desk, or on your nightstand, even just as a beautiful message for the day moving forward. And we're big also on affirmations, and affirmations are just so powerful. Our words are our wands. So for the month of May, the message was, this month, I focus on allowing myself to be still and listen to my inner wisdom. I take time every day to meditate, daydream, and quiet my mind. I feel newly energized after these periods of restfulness. Fun, uplifting ideas flow through my consciousness. I then follow through on the ideas received, bringing them into a joyous reality. In the process, I discover that I can create miracles in my life. So I think that's really important, especially in this individual and collective phase that we're in now, because the one word that really resonated to me when I went back and read this is follow through. And we are certainly in that energy right now. I'm going to talk a lot about the planet Saturn and how it relates to the energy that we've been in the last week, but also under this full moon that's incoming. And Saturn's not always the most fun to talk about. Saturn means we have to get to work and ear to the grindstone, nose to the grindstone, whatever the saying is. And the follow through part and the action part is now where we're at. And that's not always easiest. As the message for May said, it was kind of like a passive energy, receptivity with the Mercury retrograde concurrent with the eclipse season. It was more of just like a time to pay attention to what's happening, note what's coming in, and not necessarily act unless you had to in some way. And now we're in more of a active masculine, I guess you could say, energy rather than that feminine, watery, where we were with all the Scorpio energy and the full moon on the 5th of May that we had. And that was definitely, the feminine energy is more receptive in general anyway. And now we have a full moon in a fire sign and we're in an air season. So those are the more considered masculine energies, masculine signs. And now it's time to act. And that's not always the easiest, especially when things are a little bit confusing still. Like I said, the smoke is clearing, but it kind of hasn't just yet. So let's get to the message for June, and then I will get into Saturn and the full moon. So the calendar message for yesterday for the beginning of June has beautiful sunflowers on it. They are one of my absolute favorites. And we're getting into that solar time here in the Northern Hemisphere. Summer's coming. Gemini is the season when the summers change, or the seasons change. We shift from spring into summer. So the message for June: I look for opportunities this month to express myself as who I really am. The beauty and joy of the universe, expressing and receiving. I rejoice in the truth of my being. I am energy. I am spirit. I am the essence of love. I let my light shine brightly. And that's where we're at. That is so where we're at. And I've really been reflecting a lot on the last several years. We had a lot of energy in Gemini before the node shifted. The North Node was in Gemini for a year and a half. So like, I think it was 2020 into 20, no, I'll correct that. I think it was 21 into early 20 into 22. Yeah, 18 months. So we just shifted at the end of 2022. So most of 2021 and part of 2020, actually most of 2022 and part of 2021. Sorry, I should have looked that up before I hit record. Apologies for that. So as we know, as we've discussed on this podcast, North Node is growth point. North Node is soul's growth on a very individual level, on a collective level. It teaches us about the path forward, breaking out of our comfort zone, newness, new energy, into raising our vibration. Gemini energy is very much about new ideas, new thought forms, just having this childlike wonder and curiosity about life and the world. And we're in Gemini season now, so that's where our sun is for this full moon. That's a lot of the energy we had at that time when the North Node was transiting through, was teaching us about where we get our information. Gemini is very much about information, and I'll talk a little bit about the dynamic between Gemini and Sagittarius. As we know, when we have a full moon, it's sun in one sign, moon in the opposite sign. So this is a face-off kind of between Gemini and Sagittarius under the energy of this full moon. So how do we get our information? And there was so much information during that time. But think about it. Think about 2020 and 2021 and 2022 for that matter. We had eclipses happening in those signs. And I think this is really important as the point of reflection, because in a lot of what I wrote about it and a lot of what I spoke about it during that time, I was in my own personal way as well, really thinking about how I get my information. And I had started to just kind of step back from mainstream media and things like that and really see what, from a higher perspective, what was going on there, and the manipulation that's going on there, and with just things coming through the television in particular, television. So I started really paying attention to my body and my intuition even more, and my truth meter for that matter. And I think this is a great opportunity now, under the energy of this full moon in particular, to integrate that a little bit more and to shift perspective. Gemini and Sagittarius is very much about perspective, and the old ways and things that we've been conditioned into have been falling away now for a while. Part of the new Pluto energy that we're in, with that shift in the dance now that's happening between Capricorn and Aquarius, very much about, I mean, look at what's happening in the world. Look at what's happening in the finance system. Look at what's happening. It's just all the things that are still crumbling and breaking down and making way for something new. And we all have that opportunity on a very individual level to contribute to the collective, because it starts with us. It starts with our internal process and our internal healing and what we do within ourselves to shift. There's a lot of energy right now and potential in shifting and figuring out a different way, figuring out a way that serves everybody in a better way. Aquarius energy is very much about humanitarian groups of people. And we have that fresh Pluto vibe that we're going to carry forward for the next 20 years in Aquarius, and lots of revolutionary energy that comes with that, and just new ideas and higher perspectives, and tapping into what we know is there, but that we maybe not necessarily see, but we can feel it. So with this full moon, we definitely have lots of Saturn vibes. I talked about how in the last episode, after the new moon in Taurus, we had that awesome, beautiful energy. And then like the next day, few days after, it shifted and we had the mighty squares. We had Pluto and Mars opposition, and we had squares involved with that as well, with all the Taurus energy. And it was a lot. Those few days after that new moon, boy, did the energy shift. Like over the last weekend, I did not want to move. I felt like I was existing in a barrel of quicksand. I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but that's certainly how I felt. And it just felt like it was a deep rest and just still kind of in a receptive phase. And then as we started this week, there's been some energy building, and I'll shift a little bit into that after I talk about the full moon. So with Saturn, I mentioned a little bit about Saturn already. I want to read from I have this awesome set of decks called Cosmos, and they're made by the Light Gray Art Lab. These cards are gorgeous, and it comes with a guidebook and a tarot deck and an oracle deck. And the decks are composed of the planets, the elements, and constellations, and just other parts of the cosmos. It's such a cool deck. I've had this for a really long time, and I love, love, love it. And I actually, when I was going through my decks for our Thursday Night Lives that we just started recently with Sea Goddess, I went through my drawer. I moved in late 2020 and put all my oracle cards in a drawer. And I actually forgot that I had this one. So I've been pulling it out lately and working with it. And I was reminded of how awesome it truly is. So just for more perspective, outside of my own, just, plain and simple, black and white, this is what the planet is. So Saturn, and the description in this book, is transition, responsibility, adjustment. And the message in the guidebook for the Saturn card is: Saturn, god of the harvest, is reliable, predictable, and methodical, slow and purposeful. Saturn takes an active role in assisting with the end of one cycle so a new one may take its place. Often compared to the personification of death, Saturn swiftly delivers a blow when he believes it to be time for change. In doing so, it leaves room for a new regime to flourish. Saturn embodies the concept of forceful transition. This card speaks of power changing hands, the master being eclipsed by his apprentice, and the child growing stronger than his parent. It is important to note that the transition of power comes with new responsibility, structure, and authority. So, with that being said, if you ever see illustrations of Saturn, he's got this, I think it's called a scythe, the Reaper. It's the Reaper. Saturn's the Reaper. If you go back to my Saturn return episode in season 1, I shared a very in-depth and very vulnerable experience that I had with my own Saturn return, and forced transition was absolutely 100% what was going on at that point. For me personally, I always say that when we talk about the planet Saturn, especially when we come to things like we're on the brink of right now with the energy of this full moon and the energy we've been under in the last week and over the last 2 years, it's like getting called to the principal's office. And it's really time to own up to and take responsibility for what you came here to do. Your karma in a big way, your soul's lessons in a big way, and to take action. And I talked about that experience, my Saturn return in that episode, and I pretty much when I sum it up, I say that I had a rough draft of my life, and at that point in time, Saturn came along and put it in the shredder. And it's very much related to the death card, the death key in the tarot. If you look at that card, I use the Rider-Waite. I love the Rider-Waite. That's my favorite deck. And the image on that card has the typical illustration, I guess we see, or one of them, of Saturn. And there's a man and a woman, the masculine and the feminine, and they have these chains around their necks, and they're loose. I mean, when you look at the card initially, it looks kind of daunting, but then when you look more closely, the chains are loose, and it's up to them to just take them off. So what we have going now, Saturn shifted signs back in March. We talked about that in the episodes at that time of the year. So Saturn now in Pisces at 7 degrees. He had the Sun square Saturn transit, which happens only twice a year, last weekend on Saturday, on Saturn's day. And now we have the full moon on Saturn's day, tomorrow, Saturday. So whenever we have Sun square Saturn, whether it's in our natal chart or collectively, like we have going now, there's a challenge to us as who we are authentically. It's a challenge to our individuation. It's a challenge to our personal power. It's a challenge to shining our light in a true way. And Mandy did some readings Tuesday night in our online soul circle. And actually two of the messages that came up were about our light and not dimming it for others, especially for others, or what other people think. And I've kind of been in this phase of my own life with starting this podcast. If you go back to episode 1, or the first one that I like, the first real episode, not the introductory one, I started this podcast when Chiron was opposing my sun. And having this podcast and telling these stories and getting in front of a microphone without a script have been huge parts of my own healing journey, and so cathartic, and definitely a vehicle and a way for me to show up as my authentic self in different ways. That's where I'm at kind of personally. So now that Saturn's in Pisces, our lunations in the mutable signs, so Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, will have Saturnian influence, though there will be squares. And we will contend with these squares while Saturn transits through Pisces for the next 2 years, roughly. Maybe it's probably a little bit longer than that. So We are in this now. Think about where you're at in your own journey and where you've been in the last couple of months. What have you been called to do? What happened during the eclipse season? What came in? What changed? What's pushing you to show up more as you? And then on the other side of it now, we have the moon waxing into fullness in Sagittarius. And with Sagittarius, it's usually, just full of life and the life of the party to an extent. I always call Sagittarius the free spirit of the zodiac. And with the moon there, it's just it's a square now between the moon and Saturn as well. So whenever we have that natally or collectively, there's a healing opportunity. There's energy there to focus on our emotions. With full moons, we talk about release. What are we being called to release at this point in time that takes action steps to do it? Like I said at the beginning, we've been in this passive energy. Now we're in this action energy. So the rising to the occasion under the energy of this full moon is going to take action. It's in a fire sign. The Sagittarius is a fire sign. Fire relates to action. Fire relates to our creativity, our spirit. Air and fire are considered, like I said, the masculine signs. So that's very much about turning the feeling on the feminine side into an action. So how do you do it? How do you work with it? How do you integrate this? There could be fire ceremony that you could do. There could be just moving your body. I got that message a couple of days ago in a card that came up. Anything that you can do that is not passive, that is moving you forward and pushing your limits a little bit. Sagittarius is very much about aiming high. And the symbol for it is an arrow pointed 45 degrees up. So we learn a lot from the symbols for the signs, and that's just like aim high. Where have you been playing it small? Where have you preferred or chosen to stay in your comfort zone? And how can you push forward and out of that, incorporating everything that's come in and what lessons you've learned over the last couple months and kind of reflecting back to the beginning of the year. I think that's the primary focus and most of what I wanted to really discuss as far as the energy of this full moon. I'm pretty sure I said it, but I'll repeat it. It's tomorrow night, Saturday, the 3rd at 11:43 p.m. here on the East Coast. So that time will vary depending on where you are in the world. The other thing that we have happening with this full moon is, the other thing I wanted to mention too, with Saturn square the moon, there could be opportunity for healing regarding mom. And that could be either your mother, how you mother yourself, how you show up as a mother. There's an emotional healing quality that comes anytime that Saturn comes in contact with the moon, whether it's a conjunction or a square or an opposition. Remember, the moon relates to our emotions. It relates to the feminine parts of ourselves, our subconscious. So if your dreams have been really active over the last week, they will probably continue to be as the energy of the full moon builds, and then on a couple of days after. So pay attention to your dreamscape as well. The moon relates very much to our dreams and what comes up in those spaces from our subconscious. If you're feeling the tension and you're not sure what to do and the energy still feels confusing, this is what we have. It's called a T-square. I've talked about T-squares. So we have Saturn in Pisces squaring the full moon, which is sun and moon opposite Gemini, and Gemini, sun, Sagittarius, moon, opposite each other, T-square. There's nothing happening on the other side of it for this full moon. The other side of it is Virgo. So that's like the pressure release valve. That's the blow off point. If you're just feeling it and you don't know what to do and you just start getting frustrated, because that's what squares do. Squares create tension, so do oppositions. Get in your garden if you have one. And in the Northern Hemisphere here right now, I know so many people are planting their gardens and getting the sprouts in to start to grow in time for summer. It's been a little chilly here, so that's been a little bit delayed. Get in your garden, plant something, go to a garden if you don't have one. There are plenty of places you could probably go, like parks. Put your bare feet on the ground, on the grass. Or alternatively, with Virgo energy, is also organization. So maybe clean out a closet or get organized in some way where you feel like your life is a little less organized at the moment. And that can help you also take some action step or push through the energy. It's not easy stuff. We also have, so another note to touch on with this full moon is it's ruled by the planet Jupiter. Jupiter, Sagittarius is one of the signs that Jupiter rules. I'm sorry, all this information has kind of like been at a dam behind my throat for the last like day. So if I'm talking too fast, I'll slow down. So this full moon is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter has just shifted in the sign of Taurus. That was right around the last episode with that new moon in Taurus. And the North Node is still in Taurus. So we have Jupiter at 4 degrees of Taurus and the North Node at 2. And that doesn't happen very often. Jupiter takes 12 years to go all the way around the chart. So this is also something to incorporate and pay attention to. And like I was saying, like what is there? What is driving you? What have you been feeling? What are the fears that have been surfacing? Saturn relates very much to our fears as well, that are pushing you to dream bigger. North Node is our path forward. It's our soul's growth. Jupiter relates very much to our soul, our spirituality, our expansion. But like I said last time, it's an inside job. So on an individual and collective level, we're all experiencing this in some way. And that energy is there big time as well with this full moon. So it's very dynamic. There's a lot of interesting communication, energy flow between Saturn and the moon and the sun, but also Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn and Jupiter are what's called the 2 interpersonal planets. So they orbit kind of outside of the realm of our personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And there's an interesting dynamic between those two happening right now too. It's called a sextile. So they're sending supportive energy to each other. So Jupiter's kind of on our side right now. If you have any affinity for the planet Jupiter or in some kind of Jupiter cycle, personally, I am myself. It could be cool to maybe do a little call on Jupiter to help you release with this new moon or with this full moon energy, building forward from the new moon, whatever intentions you set then. Jupiter's on our side. Jupiter's got our back right now. So those two are sort of like working together to work on us. And it's like a paradoxical energy with the two of them, Jupiter's expansion and Saturn's restriction. So the way that they're kind of playing between each other now with this full moon is really interesting. And then also, like I said, we're clear now. The post shadow Mercury retrograde is over. Mercury is now at 19 degrees of Taurus, moving forward. And it started the retrograde very close to the planet Uranus, and now it's also back very close to the planet Uranus. Mercury is at 19 Taurus and Uranus is at 20. And those two together is just like lightning insights. If you've been experiencing a lot of synchronicities lately, or just like my network chiropractor was telling me the story about gates opening when I saw her on Tuesday, and it was such a cool story. If you're on path and it's been happening like that, where like it feels like the floodgates have opened or gates have just been opening, I touched on that last time, that's that energy. And if the gate needs force to open, then it's just not the right time, and that's okay. Pivot, figure out a different way that feels more in alignment. This is the farthest I believe that Uranus has gotten through Taurus since it shifted in May of 2018. I talked a little bit about that last time as well. So we're in this like new, Uranian energy as well. And that's just individuation, our genius, science, technology, with all of the things that we bring to the table when we are showing up as our authentic self. So that vibe is there with this full moon as well. Very, very interesting cosmic landscape we have going on. Very, very interesting Astro Weather Check for today. And just personally, how this has been showing up, like I said, I just felt like I didn't want to move last weekend. And whenever I get in those phases, personally, I've kind of learned now, after a few years on this path, that when I feel that way, it means that I'm in need to force myself to do something that I'm afraid to do, that on the other side of it will be great reward. And two things happened this week that were terrifying to an extent for me. And I pushed through. I did them. Whenever I get that feeling like, no, I just want to cancel. I don't want to do it. And I still do it. I always know that that's like that healthy dose of fear that I need to get out of my own comfort zone. And it's been interesting, this whole journey. I talked about it in many, many episodes, that everything kind of came around. Uranus came around when, like everybody knows that listens to this, I'm a Taurus rising. So when Uranus dropped into Taurus in May of 2018, I touched on this last time as well. It really woke me up. It was like personal revolution, early onset midlife correction for me. And at that time, Uranus started coming into opposition of my Mercury and the planets that I have in Scorpio, because Scorpio is on the other side of Taurus. Mercury not only woke up, it's woken up in a big way. And so Uranus woke me up, and Uranus woke my Mercury up as well. So yesterday I got to teach teachers, and I've been feeling more called into that space lately for my own integration and reflection part of this retrograde and eclipse season. Having a Mercury retrograde in your first house is a pretty intense thing. It wasn't an easy thing either. It wasn't an easy thing either. I had a lot of self-reflection and shadow work that came up personally for me during the Mercury retrograde. And on the other side of it, I always pray to my guides as well. And I got really big signs from my main guide, and it was just beautiful. And even though going through it was challenging and difficult and upsetting to an extent, because you have to revise you. It's like, that's the only way I can describe a Mercury retrograde in the first house. It's all about rethinking, reimagining, revising, redoing yourself and how you show up in the world. And then once Jupiter dropped in, the message became clearer. It's just go bigger, dream bigger, do bigger. Because I've gotten in my own little comfort zone at this point, coming on the other side of all the fears that I faced and all the things that I did to go through my apprenticeship and to start talking, like opening my mouth. There were other things kind of happening that I'm aware of now in my own chart personally that were brewing and having, all of that come to fruition at the same time. But my Mercury waking up and being okay speaking in front of a group of people without a script was huge for me. Huge. And I've been doing this podcast that way too. My first couple episodes, I definitely had notes and things, and now I'm just totally off the cuff. And I could never have dreamed or imagined doing this 5 years ago. I would have said, hell no, no way. I can't do it. It's too scary. Or I wouldn't be able to get the words out because my voice would have been too shaky. So coming into that part of the integration for myself and facing those challenges and doing the Saturn work and the shadow work and all the things that came with it, it feels good. It still feels scary. Every time I hit the record button, it still feels a little scary, but this is part of the thing. It's facing the fear and integrating it and transmuting it by just doing the thing anyway, regardless of what's going to happen. And it could be messy on the other side. I'm not saying every time it's unicorns and rainbows, but as you start doing it more and more and more, you just get more comfortable and it gets better. So if you're in this space where I was 5 years ago, where I would have said no and not even opened my mouth, at this point under this energy, it's baby steps. Just do the thing, even for a second. Record yourself for even just being on video. I never would have, never would have done it. So it's just being you. And I'm going to pull a card for us at the end as a collective reading from my Sacred Rebels deck. I've been called back to that one a lot lately, especially with the Uranus energy, especially now that I'm, for the first time, going to be in the exactness of my Uranus opposition in August. So that's really cool too, that's really coming in. Like it all started, before Uranus even dropped into Taurus. I talked about when Uranus was going through Aries, that was my spiritual reawakening experience, but it was brewing then, and now it's like coming into exactness, and this is where I'm at. So just having an awareness around that too personally has been really interesting. If you're in that space of 42, if you're a 1980 baby, if you've gone through your Uranus opposition already, I think you can kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. Shout out to everybody that's born in 1980 and is 42 or around the age of 42. I feel you. And I hope that my sharing helps you, because that's part of my intention with this podcast. So embrace this full moon as much as you can. Release the tension if you need to in the ways that I suggested. Integrate. This is how we integrate. We do the work. And it feels like a pressure cooker. I know. I feel it. I feel you. It could even be like, if you're up early enough, doing a little Jupiter gazing. Jupiter's in the morning sky now before sunrise. It's a really cool thing. We don't get to experience it often when we can actually see the moon at its peak fullness. So if you're on the East Coast, if you're up late on tomorrow, Saturday night, look at the moon at 11:43 when it's full, or a few minutes before and a few minutes after. Do a little moon gazing if you can, just like bask in that moonlight and really feel it. I have talked about this before. It's one of the coolest things to connect with the planets and the luminaries in that way, and to just bathe in their energy. Venus is also amazing right now. Venus is going to shift into the sign of Leo on Monday, and we're going to get a preview probably starting then of what this upcoming Venus retrograde is going to be like. That's coming in July. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But even some Venus gazing, just finding peace in that beauty and dazzle that at this point of Venus's cycle is just, I'm always in awe, and I've seen it so many times at this point, but it's just remarkable and so beautiful. And just connecting with the planets in that way, and just knowing that we are the cosmos. I feel like this cosmos deck has come out at this time now too, for that reminder for me too. Okay, so let's get into our Chiron content for today. We are going to be talking about the 12th house. We have now gone all the way around from 1 through 12 as far as Chiron's placement in the houses. And the 12th house is a very interesting space. It is one of the couple liminal spaces of the chart, liminal spaces of the sky. It's that time between night and day. It's breaking that line of night and day. So that's why we say it's a liminal space. It's like a dreamy space. And it has many, many themes associated with it. So I will throw those out here now before we get into the Chiron material, and then also the Black Moon card for the 12th house. The 12th house is our unconscious. It's those parts of ourselves that we can't see. 1 and 12 are next to each other in the chart. So if you've seen a birth chart, it's a wheel. It starts with 1 and the numbers go all the way around to 12. So we are, as we show up in the world, our physical bodies, us, 1. 12 is a blind spot. And if you have any planets above your ascendant, they can take on a very 12th house quality. Like in English, it's sort of a confusing energy. It's like, what part of me do I not see that I'm coming into this lifetime to embody and integrate? The 12th house relates to our unconscious in that way. It relates to the parts of ourselves that we can't see, like I said, that we're meant to see, though. Like if you have planets there, that's emphasized natally. I don't have any planets in the 12th house natally, but as planets have been going through my 12th house, boy, has my unconscious spoken. It's Aries for me. So I have Chiron going through my 12th house right now. And it's very much related to escape and retreat. and all the different ways that can show up, whether it's an addiction, which can be to a substance or to our phones or anything that forces us to not be in this moment or to not face and numb the parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at. It relates to our mental health in that way as well. Whenever I work with people that have 12th house placements, I always be sure to mention that it's really important to make sure that you're getting enough time away in whatever way that looks like, whether it's going on retreat or just spending time alone in meditation. It relates very much to our spirituality as well, but like the higher realms, the dreamscape, meditation, that kind of thing, to make sure that one's cup stays full. Very important if you have 12th house placements. My astrology teacher taught a lot about the 12th house in the framework of it being, or it can be related to someone's undoing and reaching the masses. A lot of actors, celebrities, people like pop, like presidents, that kind of thing, that had a lot of 12th house placements got to a point where they just went into overdrive and didn't refill their cups, and it led to their undoing. And whether that was a scandal or some kind of thing that just took them down in a public way, or death. So that was an interesting perspective to learn as well. That's not really written about too much. It's the higher realms, really. It's those unseen spaces beyond. It's where like the planets that we can't see live. Beyond the scene, the unknown. You're swimming in the unknown waters in the 12th house, and how you face those is very much related to your 12th house journey, whether you have planets there or not. It's usually related a lot to the Neptunian energy, the things that we can feel but we can't see, the things that are confusing, the mist, the fog, the smoke, the bottom of the ocean that none of us will probably ever see, those places that we can't reach physically. So it's our higher selves a lot, to an extent too, and that part of our soul that kind of stays on the other plane while we're in this human form, and connecting with that. And how do you connect with that, or do you ignore it? It's a really interesting space. So that's what I've learned about the 12th house personally, as well as through my studies and in working with people. So now let's see what Barbara has to say if you have Chiron in the 12th house. And if you're new to the show, new to the podcast, I've been reading and teaching from Barbara Hand Clow's book, Chiron, Rainbow Bridge Between the Inner and Outer Planets. And we've been going through passages from her book on Chiron and the houses. I just want to mention one more thing before I start reading from Barbara that just came to me. The 12th house is about transcendence. We take, as I've taught, as we go around the wheel, we learn our lessons, especially the personal ones, the very personal ones that we came into this lifetime with, in the lower hemisphere of the chart, 1 through 6. Now we've gotten into where we bring those lessons and those gifts and those things out into the outside world, 7 through 12. So 12 is really the culmination of our lesson plan and what we've done and integrated and achieved in our incarnation. That's a really important thing to note about the 12th house as well. So with Chiron in the 12th, this is what Barbara says. And I skip over, Barbara does a lot of reference in her material to the research that she did to write this book. So it kind of sounds like I'm skipping over things, I am, because if you don't have the book, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about. So I am just going to read some sections that I've highlighted, and we'll skip over the specific chart references that she makes. And so this is what Barbara says about Chiron in the 12th house. The presence of Chiron in the 12th house signifies the potential to actuate cosmic immersion to enter deeply into mysticism. This chirotic thought potential becomes real when the native learns to use the pragmatic gifts of the 6th house to develop the acute awareness of the exact place and time of this dimension in relation to others. How? The development of the divination skill is required in order to release consciousness from left brain linear time thought processes so that holographic brain functions materialize. Being a mystic is a choice. It involves free will, and it is a possibility in life after the native has mastered the will axis of the 5th/11th houses. Knowing this psychic labyrinth is a need for individuals with Chiron in the 12th house. In Earth Ascending, Jose Arguelles, I think it is, said about holonomics or holistic thought processes. Holonomics depends upon a self-reflective consciousness, a clarity of perception, and an ability to account for and create order. A process culminating in the intuitive apprehension and expression of the whole system of order of which one is a member. Intuition is the forte of these natives, and the greatest service they can do for those around themselves is to cultivate inner knowing. This is where the comprehension of Chiron as a Saturnian experiential function will really help to awaken the possibility of manifesting the mystic side of ourselves into the world. Simply put, the 6th/12th house axis is the left-right brain polarity. Individuals who have Chiron in the 12th house are prone to giving their free will to teachers because their highly attuned early awareness is out of tune with the real world. We need to remember that we're not supposed to follow anybody, that free will is the highest human faculty, and that we are to learn from teachers but never follow. If they can master this teaching, then they will become the master teacher who initiates followers directly into their own way of wisdom. They will be the gate openers of the coming age, so they must be assisted to open their own gates and not dance to the tune of anyone else. In order to truly find this energy, they must hold to the highest essence of the free will axis of the 5th/11th, and then the polarity power of the 6th/12th will energize by means of chirotic pragmatism. The key to resolution of the 12th house Chiron is a careful examination of the 6th house to determine the potential highest octave of the native. The goal is to figure out which esoteric order they have worked with for many lifetimes and be ready for anything. Once the mystical connection is identified, focus on the difficult aspects in the chart. Awesome. So that's what Barbara has to say. And that's so cool that it even talked about the Saturnian part and what I've even read about in the Saturn card from the Cosmos book, the student becoming the teacher and teaching the teacher and that kind of thing. Like, that's just so cool that even came up in that passage, because I talked about this in the very beginning. Saturn was Chiron's father. So there's a dynamic there that's really interesting between the two of them as well. So if you have Chiron in the 12th house and would like to share, I would love to hear from you if that resonated for you. What has been your journey with that, with what Barbara says, or anything that you've learned personally in your life experience and or in astrology, having readings, or even in your studies. So reach out if you want. I'd find that very cool and would appreciate it. ursaalchemy@gmail.com. So now let's go to our Black Moon Astrology Oracle deck and read about the 12th house from there. And this card is beautiful. It has one of the shells on it that shows the sacred geometry in the way that it's expressed on Earth, and the Fibonacci sequence, and it's got different moons on it and an eclipsed moon, and it just really conveys that liminal space vibe that I was talking about, that like space in between. And the message on the card is escape, and it's card number 36. So let's get into what the card says. And as I have addressed before, reading through these descriptions, a lot of times they reference things assigning different houses in natural charts, so Aries rising charts. That's how I typically work with it. And Aries rising chart is the typical baseline layout. I work with it as what you're born with is what you work with, and I don't overlay the two. In my own practice, I just find that that's too confusing for people and for myself as well when I was trying to learn. So that's what they're saying when they say that a certain sign or planet is assigned to a specific house. It's for a natural chart. And also, this is an oracle deck, remember, so it does talk about, when I read from the guidebook, pulling the card with other cards. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. So it says on here, each card comes with a quote. So the quote in the book for the 12th house card is, "The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact." And that is from Shakespeare in A Midsummer's Night Dream. It is time to get, quote unquote, on point. It's not a time to ignore or overlook what's there. Things may get fragmented. The 12th house of the zodiac is the most mesmerizing of all the houses. Mysticism, dreaming, drowning, vast seas, and surrendering are all themes that belong to this, quote unquote, house of self-undoing. It is also the place in the chart where we lapse in our judgment and make bad choices. Like the sign of Pisces that rules it in a natural chart, the 12th house falls at the end of the zodiac, which indicates a type of passage or rebirth. This house contains the meanings of all the signs and planets and all the other houses within it. The 12th house stands for the all in all caps. Even though astrologers refer to the 12th house as the gutter or garbage dump of the zodiac, I do not. It is still distinct in its meaning. Evolved souls and the doomed live here. Within the 12th house are the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. Ruled by Neptune, the planet of confusion and drunkenness, prisoners, shut-ins, saints, artists, and mystics call this home. Imagination, linking up, and connection to the unknown are all facets of the 12th house. It is where the material and non-physical worlds connect. It is both the beginning and the end. The 12th house offers bliss, spiritual fulfillment, the meeting up with twin flames. It promises of losing yourself in some beautiful, quote unquote, other. But it might be like trying to hold on to a cloud. This house of poetry and oceans is enchantment. It is where we lie to ourselves as well. This house also represents water, toxins, poisons, perfumes, candles, hidden chambers, secreted desires, Christ consciousness, and martyrdom. The 12th house tells us to forget about ourselves and live for others. But this may bring confusion and also peril. It is fear and paranoia. It is beauty and love. It teaches us to write poetry and understand the messages from the heavenly spheres. The 12th house inspires us to show great kindness. When the 12th house card comes up in a reading, something is amiss. There is something about the situation you are unsure about, or at least are not privy to. All is not as it seems. Without information, it's difficult to move forward. The signals you're getting are probably wrong ones. That medical test you just had, the diagnosis is not likely accurate. What seems obvious right now is only a mirage or obscured. I'm going to skip over the combinations of card pairings. The warning with this card is to not look to others for fulfillment or to others to give you your purpose, at least not at the current phase. It's either the incorrect time to attempt this, or you are looking to the wrong crowd. While the 10th house gives us the truth, the 12th house gives us magic. Each is important, and you cannot be all that is without the other. Take heed and search for clarity. Watch out for deception at this time. 12th house card in brief: dissolving of boundaries, lack of definition, being under the influence of something/someone, being a victim, seeking friends as enemies and enemies as friends, not having a clear sense of things, being lost in the fog and mists, glamour, falling under a spell, sleight of hand, being led, mermaids, ocean life, beaches, leaks, cancellations due to wet weather, hospitals, the end of life, shut-ins, psychiatric issues, being charged but not guilty, prisons, criminals, con artists, bringing bad luck on yourself, karma, fate, poetry, music, showing kindness, compassion, being converted to a religion, hopefully not a cult, the call to spirit, saintliness, hypnosis, mediumship, clairaudience, spirits, intoxication, old souls, the valley of miseries, the answer to love. The corresponding tarot card is the Four of Cups. And key ideas: solitude, charity, begging, hospitalization, secret enemies, exploitation, visions. Like I said, it's a very interesting space. So that is our content for today. I am going to shift into the collective reading, and then I'll wrap up with just some announcements and things that we have going on, upcoming events, and then we'll close out season 2. And I'm just so excited about shifting into season 3. So, Sacred Rebels cards, what message do we have for everybody today, especially under this energy of this full moon coming up? Oh, sorry. I hit the microphone. All right, still shuffling here. Oh, there we go. Got a stopper. Heaven Sent, card number 33. This card is absolutely beautiful. It's got a female-like figure on it. And I guess the best way to describe this would be a halo. And her eyes are closed, and it looks like she's in this deep meditative state. And the halo is pretty much surrounding the upper part of her head, emanating from her third eye, and pretty much fills out the entire rest of the card. It's absolutely beautiful. I don't know if I've ever actually pulled this card before. So, like I said, this is Sacred Rebels by Alana Fairchild. I love this deck. So it's card number 33, and in the book, it's page 133. I've been getting those numbers a lot lately, 1s and 3s. So let's see what it says. Okay, Heaven Sent for everybody at this time. Just as we receive gifts in the physical world through the thoughtfulness of others to acknowledge how much we mean to them, so too we receive gifts on other levels, including the spiritual level. A spiritual gift is something that happens through grace. We can ask for help, and it may be given in response to that request. All requests for help are answered. A spiritual gift can also be given without us asking for anything at all, at least not consciously. Sometimes it is our hearts that cry out for help. We are busy getting on with our to-do lists. We don't often stop to think about what our hearts might need. If we do, and an immediate solution is not obvious, we just get on with life, either letting the issue be or taking the more painful option of dwelling on it without seeing how it might be resolved. However, there is a loving benevolence in life that knows exactly what we need and how it can best come to us, even when we are not quite so clear. This force actively seeks to assist us in walking our life path. That loving sweetness is being offered to you now, or soon will be, in the form of a spiritual gift. Your spiritual gift may be symbolic. It may be something that seems ordinary but holds a lot of meaning to you. It might be an object that catches your eye and mesmerizes you. You might think you are appreciating how lovely it looks, but it is the underlying energy that captures you. Something in the appearance, color, or shape speaks to you and is perhaps answering an unspoken prayer. It is not the object that is the gift. This is just the wrapping. The actual gift is subtle, yet effective empowerment. It is like a spiritual booster shot that helps you move forward in life with additional zing, extra strength, and greater peace. You will be empowered to accomplish tasks that you may have nearly, but not quite, been able to manage on your own through the bestowal of a spiritual gift. The spiritual gift may or may not be recognizable to you. It may be very obvious, an offer, a windfall, a trip, a friendship, a new lover, or a remarkable healing in a current relationship. It might be far more subtle and even more powerful, such as a jolt of energy that allows you to perceive things differently all of a sudden and perhaps solve a problem that has been plaguing you. It will be bestowed as and when it is needed in the form that will best serve the love in you. This oracle also brings you the message: let yourself be helped. Assistance is coming your way, so act on it and say yes. If you have also drawn the oracle of collaborative dreaming, then this message is amplified. It is very significant as the assistance is coming from the hand of life itself. Trust it. This oracle also comes with the message that you are to trust the things that you feel and say to others without knowing why. It moves them. You might not understand, but through trust, you are allowing yourself not to overthink and censor yourself. As such, you are able to become a vessel through which the spiritual gift can be passed on to others. Don't block yourself. Let life happen through you. Only benefit can come from this. If you have drawn any other card in addition to this one, it acts as a wild card and an amplifier. I won't go over that because we didn't pull any other cards. So it is simple to receive the gift that is headed your way. The healing process below will activate that for you. And the healing process is say, hold your hand to your heart. Through unconditional love, I now accept the spiritual gifts that are bestowed upon me with complete trust and gratitude. So be it. That was a beautiful message for me too. I almost started crying while I was reading it. So that trust that I was talking about before and going into something unscripted, that takes a lot if it's not something that comes naturally to you, like trusting the flow and being able to, like yesterday we spoke to we taught a workshop, and me and Mandy and Adrian, who's been we've been working with sound healing, and I'll talk about an event we're doing together soon. We taught a workshop, and it was the same workshop, but to 2 different groups of people. And we had notes, we had bullet points, and I was still going into this like, okay, I have to just stand up there and talk and not look at my notes and just let it flow. And as I've mentioned, as I've said, that was truly terrifying. It still is a little bit, but going, like I said, baby steps and practice. If this is for you, like your throat chakra, your voice, your Mercury waking up, I'm speaking to you in particular because that's my personal experience and what I can speak the best on. Trusting the flow from higher self, divine, spiritual gift, whatever, to come through and out of your mouth in particular it's a process, but you get there. And it was interesting because we had the same notes, the same outline, the same agenda, and the way that we taught both workshops was completely different because our audience was different. And every time I sit in front of the microphone, anytime I give a reading, anytime I'm speaking or doing anything like that, I say prayers to my team. And I want to talk about this. This is important, especially to what the card that just came up. I pray to my team that what comes out of my mouth, what gets transmitted and transmuted through me from the information that's coming in, is with clarity, ease, and grace. I pray to Archangel Sandalphon for this all the time, every time. And that the message that's delivered is what the person that I'm speaking to or the group that I'm speaking to needs to hear for their highest good and healing at this time. And I think that's really important because what comes through, it'll be phrased differently, or the words that I choose in the moment will be different depending on who's in front of me. And I think that that is a really important message, especially with what came through in this card. And then also when I did the Astro Weather Check for our online soul circle on Tuesday, I pulled from my Ask Your Guides deck by Sonia Choquette. And the card that came up was Higher Self. And it was a reminder that particularly under these energies that are super tense and the really challenging parts of our life path and journey and human experience, that Saturnian work, ask your team for help. They're there. Your angels, your guides, your ancestors, your starseed team, like whatever it is to you, your God, whatever it is, ask for help. That they can't act on our behalf most times. So they're there. You can ask the planets for help. Like I said, call in Jupiter if you need to, or if you feel called to. Do some planetary gazing, call in those energies. Like all spirit's there for us. Spirit's got our back. All you have to do is ask. And if you're new to working with your spirit team, that's okay. Just say, you know, spirit guides, help me, and whatever it is, whatever the thing is, and it will come. I promise you it will come, just like that card said. And the way that spirit communicates is so subtle. So subtle. But yeah, that one book by Sonia, that deck is based on, Ask Your Guides. It was a tremendous part of my learning experience and working with my team. Ted Andrews also has really cool books about that and working with your spirit guides. I think it's even called like How to Work with Spirit Guides or something like that. So there's a lot of resources out there if you're new on the path and working with your team, but just give it a try, experiment, ask for a sign. I usually ask for things that are kind of challenging, like, I don't know, a green triangle. And then just be open to how that might come. That's how I was taught. Ask for something and then give spirit a time frame. Like, show me a green triangle. Ask the question and then say, show me a green triangle in the next 3 days. And just see what happens. And just be open to how it might come. So asking for help is huge, especially when things feel particularly challenging, especially when we're under intense cosmic energies like we are right now. So, upcoming events. On Monday, and I'll put all these links in the show notes so you can go right to register or find out more information. On Monday, we are doing our third soul space at Spa Deluxe in Egg Harbor Township. So if you are local in the South Jersey area, from 7 to 9 p.m. on Monday evening. We will be over there having a soul circle, and all that is we pretty much just open and hold sacred space. It's me and Mandy that do it together. And we'll talk about the full moon energies as well. We've been doing these on the other side of the full moons, which has been really cool because everyone's been able to talk about the experience in reflection, which is nice. So we'll talk all about the full moon. We'll do readings. We'll pull cards. We do soul inquiry. And it's usually just been a beautiful group that comes together. It's limited to 10 people, and we're half full at this point. So if you want to join us, register as soon as you can. That link is right on our website, on our events page. And it's beautiful. It's $22, and we just hold space for 2 hours, and whatever comes up, whatever comes up in the circle stays in the circle. And we've been doing those once a month. So that's on Monday night. And then Mandy and Lexi are teaching a summer school version of Shadow Twerk that will be on Wednesday evenings starting next week. I believe it's 7 to 8:30. That's also right on our website. It's a 12-week journey with them, Shadow Twerk Summer School. The feedback that they've gotten and we've gotten from the Shadow Twerks that they've done so far has been phenomenal, and it's really helped a lot of people move a lot of energy in a very short amount of time. Mandy and Lexi are incredible, wonderful teachers, and they're doing it with you. And the name might sound weird. Twerk gets associated with different things. We've gotten some feedback from people like, twerking, really? It's not that kind of twerking. It's just moving your body that goes along with the theme of the class and the theme that comes up for everybody that's in the class at that time. Moving your body shifts the energy for sure. So they are beautiful, wonderful guides, and that will start on, like I said, Wednesday next week, and register for that right on our website. It's right on our homepage as well as our classes page. So we have that coming up next week as well. And then we'll be live again on Thursday. Last night's live was awesome. So Thursday night lives every week, live streaming on our YouTube and Facebook page. 7:30. We've been trying to keep it to an hour. So if you want a reading during that time, be sure to hop on as early as you can. That will be next Thursday. And then on Saturday, we are bringing back light and sound, but in a different way. We are doing a light and sound healing experience at Absecon Lighthouse. And that will be Saturday, June 10th. So next Saturday at 6. It starts at 6 and will end at 8. And it'll be me and Mandy and Adrian and possibly Jess. And for the first hour, it'll be a workshop, and we'll be doing discussions about the cosmic energies and gallery readings. And then from 7:30 to 8, Adrian is going to do a sound bath and guided meditation at the base of the lighthouse. And we use the lighthouse as a natural amplifier, send those vibes out into the water and the land and the surrounding community. And it's going to be incredibly beautiful. This is going to be the third time we're doing this, and we're really excited for it. The lighthouse people are really excited for it. And it's also going to be pretty much the only holistic healing event planned for what's being called North Shore Festival. It's a 3-city festival in New Jersey, Asbury Park, Newark, and Atlantic City. And the Atlantic City part of it starts, I believe, on Sunday. And our event will be during that North Shore Atlantic City weekend. So if you're coming here for North Shore, you're local, and you want to do something different than go to a show or eat at a restaurant or go to a bar, we are having a healing experience. So we're calling it Tune the Light of Your Soul, and it'll be beautiful. And during the sound bath, everyone's invited to just lay on the lawn. The lighthouse has an awesome 2-acre property. So it's all just like lawn and open space and beautiful. And everyone will be invited to just lay down on the grass and meditate. If you want to spend the whole time with us, just bring a picnic and you can relax and enjoy the gallery reading workshop part as well. And that is a $20 donation to keep the light shining. You can register on the Lighthouse's website on their events page ahead of time, or make the $20 donation at the door. So we're super excited for that. And just being inside the base of the lighthouse and doing that is just incredible and phenomenal. Just love that space so much. It's got this vibe. So that's what we have going on. And if you'd like to work with me, if you want a reading, You can find me on seagoddesshealingarts.com/Ursa Alchemy. And I just want to give a shout out. I thought of this when I was reading from the card. I heard from a listener named Seraphim, which was, I can't even really get into it now as we're wrapping up, but one of my spiritual gifts, just from spirit, just hearing from a listener named Seraphim. So thank you, Seraphim, if you're listening to this episode. I'm truly grateful for your kind words and encouragement. And that was exactly what I needed at that point in time. As the message came in, when I felt like not doing anything last weekend. So it helped me push myself this week. And you don't even know how big that was for me. So sending my love to you all. I hope to see you online or in person at any of our upcoming in-person events. I would love to work with you. I'd love to hear from you. If what I've shared so far on seasons 1 or 2 has resonated, email me. I love hearing from people. You can also comment on the YouTube show. And then also, just as I've been doing the last few episodes, if you're listening on a platform that allows reviews and/or stars, I would incredibly appreciate that. And in exchange for that, my energy exchange gift back to you, I will gift you my lunar alchemy class. So take a screenshot and email it to me, ursaalchemy@gmail.com, and I will gift you my lunar alchemy class for free. And that's the class that I did recently under the energy of the first Aries new moon around the equinox. And I taught all about moon phases, what moon phases mean in the birth chart, and also my own practice of setting my new moon intentions based on the space of the chart, my chart in the house where the moon is happening. So powerful way to work with it. It up levels your new moon practice for sure. So that's like a almost 2-hour class that I taught on that. And I will gift that to you in exchange for a stars and/or a review. So love you all, sending my love out, especially under this energy. I just send my encouragement and vibes and positive energy. And thank you all. My heart's full and I'm so grateful. And as we end every episode, especially under this energy, to be yourself, show up as you and your authentic self, and don't dim your light, shine your light. And remember to be a maverick.